Somewhere along the cliffside of Malibu, where the waves strike like drum beats against the California shore, there stands a mansion that feels more like a legend than a home. Gilded with carved archways, secret gardens, and an infinity pool that dares to kiss the horizon. This is where Cher, the eternal goddess of pop, built her ocean view sanctuary. But what does a house like that reveal about a woman who's always lived out loud? Today, we step inside her world, one of timeless glamour, fearless reinvention, and a life that continues to defy the rules. Before there was Cher, the icon, the voice, the legend, there was a little girl named Cheryl. She was born in El Centro, California in 1946. The desert air was dry, the days were long, and the future was uncertain. Her father, John Sarkisian, was an Armenian-American truck driver who struggled with addiction and was barely present. Her mother, Georgia Holt, was a dreamer, part Irish, part Cherokee, a sometime actress and model who carried hope in one hand and unpaid bills in the other. But how does a girl from nothing become a symbol for everything? Cher's earliest memories weren't of red carpets or cameras. They were of orphanage windows, looking out at the world through glass while her mother visited once a week. They were of rubber bands holding her shoes together, of moving from one state to another as her mother chased roles and love. And yet, amid all that uncertainty, Cher discovered something more powerful than comfort. She found herself. By the time she reached 5th grade, she was staging musicals for her classmates. She wasn't just another girl in the room, she was the room. Her classmates still remember how she walked in like a movie star, declaring she would be famous. And somehow, no one doubted her. But confidence couldn't cover everything. Cher battled dyslexia, drifted through traditional education, and often felt like an outsider. Still, her voice, that deep, velvet thunder, was undeniable. And in 1962, at just 16, she met Sonny Bono. Was it fate? Or the start of a perfectly timed revolution? Sonny was 27. She was just a teenager, but their chemistry, both personal and professional, was electric. She moved in. They created music. He introduced her to legendary producer Phil Spector, and before long, she was singing backup on tracks like Be My Baby and You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. But it wasn't enough. They wanted more. In 1965, the world heard 4 words that would define a generation. I Got You, Babe. It wasn't just a hit. It was a movement. With Sonny's arrangements and Cher's haunting voice, they captured something fragile and fearless about young love. The duo's boho look, wild fur vests and bell-bottoms, became a fashion phenomenon. Suddenly, the girl who once tied her shoes with rubber bands was on the cover of Time magazine. Their debut album, Look at Us, didn't just chart. It dominated, with 5 tracks in the Billboard Top 50, a feat matched only by the Beatles and Elvis Presley at the time. But as quickly as fame rises, it can turn. By the early 70s, Sonny and Cher were struggling. The music wasn't connecting, and their relationship was fracturing. Yet in the ashes of their fading romance, something unexpected bloomed. A hit TV show. The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour became a cultural landmark, blending music, humor, and Cher's now signature sharp wit and bold outfits. But no show can save a broken love. They divorced in 1975 after a very public legal battle. And just like that, Cher stood alone on stage. No Sonny, no partner, just a mic, a spotlight, and the world watching. Would she fade or rise? The answer came quickly. Cher signed a massive deal with Warner Brothers, launched a solo TV show, and took creative control over her music. She released bold albums like Stars, and although some flopped commercially, critics began to see her as more than a pop product. She was an artist. And then came the movies. Robert Altman gave her a shot on Broadway with Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. Critics were stunned Cher could act. She followed with Mask, 1985, The Witches of Eastwick, 1987, and finally Moonstruck, 1987, which earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress. That moment, standing on the Oscar stage, dressed in a beaded black Bob Mackie masterpiece, unapologetic and powerful, was the beginning of a new era. Cher wasn't just surviving, she was transcending. She became the first artist to have a #1 single in 6 consecutive decades. From Bang Bang in the 60s to Believe in the 90s, the auto-tuned anthem that defined a generation of clubgoers and resurrected her career, Cher proved again and again. Reinvention was her religion. She took over Las Vegas with residencies, grossing hundreds of millions. She toured the globe, sold out stadiums, inspired generations of LGBTQ+ fans, and never once apologized for being Cher. But how do you come down from that kind of high? Where do you go when the spotlight fades and the silence begins? For Cher, the answer was the sea. Not metaphorical, but literal. The endless blue of the Pacific Ocean, the warm cliffs of Malibu, and a place carved in stone where she could finally breathe. Her Malibu mansion isn't just a home. It's the product of decades of pain and triumph, of choices made in chaos and dreams pursued without a net. It's where Cher's voice meets the wind, where time stands still, not because it must, but because she wills it. And now, it's time we step inside. Mansion in Malibu. It rises like a dream sculpted from ancient stone, perched on the Malibu cliffs where sky and sea seem to melt into one another. This is Cher's Malibu mansion, a $75 million sanctuary built not just for shelter, but for soul. From the very first glance, it doesn't whisper luxury. It declares it. You don't approach this house. You arrive. A set of ornate wrought iron gates opens to a stone-paved driveway wrapped in olive trees and climbing roses. As the Pacific breeze brushes your face, the mansion unveils itself. A 12,000-square-foot masterpiece designed in Italian Renaissance style, with its creamy stone facade, carved cornices, and rows of high-arched windows gazing out at the sea. And behind those windows? A world of art, story, and silence. Step through the grand wooden doors and you're greeted by a foyer draped in golden light. Overhead, the coffered ceilings seem to float, every inch hand-carved with old-world detail. The floors beneath your feet are stone, cool, smooth, and imported from Europe. It feels like a cathedral, a stage, and a home all at once. To the right, the living room, where arched French doors open directly to the ocean breeze. Pillows of cream and gold scatter across velvet sofas, flanked by antique candelabras and hand-painted vases from Venice. The fireplace, trimmed in limestone, roars gently. And above it, a mirror framed in gilded wood, catching the reflection not just of the sea, but of her. Everywhere you look, you sense Cher's presence, not in portraits or trophies, but in details. The wooden beams flown in from Tuscany, the silk drapes dyed in sunset hues, the sculptures tucked into niches, Greek goddesses, Egyptian queens. She's lived many lives, and the house carries them all. Past the living area is the formal dining room, where a crystal chandelier glistens above a 12-seat table of dark walnut. The table is set, always, as if waiting for music, laughter, or a quiet conversation under candlelight. And then comes the kitchen. A surprise. Rather than cold steel or glossy marble, this space feels warm, lived in, personal. Copper pans hang from a wrought iron rack. The cabinetry is custom carved. A window above the farmhouse sink opens to the ocean, letting the scent of salt water in while Cher brews morning tea. But the magic of this mansion isn't just in the grandeur. It's in the private moments it protects. There are 7 bedrooms here, each a world of its own, with balconies that open to sunrises, and baths that echo with running water and whispered dreams. The primary suite, of course, is the crown jewel, with a meditation room tucked in a private alcove and a spa-inspired bathroom clad in creamy stone and soft lantern light. It's less a bathroom, more a sanctuary, a place where one might not only cleanse the body, but the past. Outside, the estate becomes a living painting. Walk out from the main hall onto a terracotta-tiled terrace, and the infinity pool stretches ahead, a mirror to the ocean, with no edge, no end. It seems to invite you to float away, to leave the world behind. Just beyond it, lush gardens bloom, citrus trees, lavender paths, marble fountains whispering beside climbing ivy. To the left, a private tennis court awaits under the shade of palm trees. To the right, stone steps wind down to a secluded bluff, a place where Cher has been known to watch the sunset, wrapped in a shawl as the wind dances through her hair. And surrounding it all? Nearly 2 acres of pure privacy. No paparazzi, no noise, just ocean, sky, and the gentle echo of waves, like applause from nature itself. But this home isn't just a place to rest. It's a reflection of Cher's power, her sensuality, her eternal need to create beauty around her. Every archway, every curtain, every tile tells a story of a woman who has conquered the world and carved herself a palace not to rule from, but to exhale in. Because after decades of touring, performing, winning and losing, what does a legend crave the most? Not lights, not awards, not even applause, just this: stillness, sea air, and a house that sings only when she walks through it. But if Malibu was where Cher retreated to meditate by the sea, then Miami was where she came to sparkle. And sparkle she did, inside a spectacular sun-kissed mansion nestled on Lagos Island, one of Biscayne Bay's most elite and private enclaves. Mansion in Biscayne Bay. Valued at $17 million, this was no ordinary home. It was a coastal jewel where South Florida's tropical breeze danced through open archways and where glamour met golden light at every turn. From the outside, the home feels like a postcard from the Mediterranean. Red-tiled roof, bright whitewashed stucco, curved iron balconies, and an unmistakable Floridian warmth emanating from every wall. The property is tucked behind gates and hedges, wrapped in lush palm trees, blooming hibiscus, and perfectly manicured lawns that seem to hum with sunlight. But step through the arched entryway, and the real seduction begins. Inside, the living room unfurls like a film set. Vaulted ceilings, towering windows, and polished stone floors that reflect the ocean's shimmer. A pair of oversized glass doors swing open, blurring the line between interior and exterior. And suddenly, you're not just in a house. You're in the light. Cher once said she loved homes that breathe with you. This one doesn't just breathe, it dances. Soft creams and coral tones wash over the space, echoed in high-end furniture, flowing curtains, and a series of personal art pieces collected over the years. A gleaming grand piano sits near the windows, perhaps once echoing ballads during golden Miami sunsets. Move through to the kitchen and breakfast area, and it's clear. This home was built for both quiet mornings and flamboyant gatherings. The kitchen is state-of-the-art, but never cold. Warm wood cabinetry, sleek stone counters, and subtle metallic finishes create an inviting energy. There's no separation here. Cooking, conversation, and connection happen in the same space, bathed in natural light and ocean air. As you wander down the corridor, you reach the master suite, a sanctuary within a sanctuary. This room doesn't shout for attention, it glows. A private terrace faces the water. The bed, dressed in soft linens, invites you to listen, not to noise, but to stillness. The ensuite bath features a freestanding soaking tub, glass rain shower, and mirrored vanities, all wrapped in clean white and warm marble. Even here, luxury feels like therapy. Of course, the house wasn't just for rest. It was built for living boldly. Step outside, and the true Miami experience unfolds. A sweeping stone patio leads to an outdoor lounge, shaded by palms and serenaded by birdsong. A resort-style pool stretches along the waterfront, glistening in the sun. A place where laughter once echoed, cocktails clinked, and summer felt eternal. Just beyond, a private dock extends into Biscayne Bay, waiting for midnight boat rides, spontaneous escapes, or quiet solitude. The entire property, inside and out, is framed by water. From every room, every balcony, you catch glimpses of the endless blue. But what you may not notice at first is the design's true genius. It's not just luxurious, it's intimate. This wasn't a house for throwing wild parties. It was a place to recharge, to host close friends, to exhale between world tours. A retreat for a woman whose public life was boundless, but whose private heart needed quiet, sun, and the scent of salt on her skin. And though Cher eventually sold the estate, one can still feel her there. In the curve of a sofa, the sway of a curtain, the golden light that lingers long after sunset. It was her Miami moment, bold, bright, beautiful. A reflection not of who she was on stage, but who she was when the cameras stopped rolling. She's had homes with views that stretch beyond imagination, but what about the journeys in between? When Cher wasn't gazing at Biscayne Bay or walking barefoot across the stone terraces of Malibu, she was in motion, cruising down Pacific Coast Highway, slipping into moonlit events, or arriving at studios in a cloud of tinted glass and quiet confidence. Because for Cher, the vehicle was never just transportation. It was entrance, statement, and sanctuary. Cars. BMW X5. Strength in silence. Let's begin with a car that mirrors Cher's quiet power. The BMW X5. Under the hood, it boasts a 3.0-liter twin-power turbo engine, delivering nearly 335 horsepower. But you'd never guess. It glides. It hums. Much like Cher walking into a room, it commands attention without asking for it. Why this car? Perhaps it's the balance of luxury and grit, of performance and poise. The cabin is leather-wrapped, tech-laden, yet it feels like a cocoon. The kind of place where you could rehearse lyrics, take calls from Europe, or simply escape the noise of the world. It's said Cher often preferred to drive herself on short Malibu errands in the X5, alone, no entourage, just her and the sound of the ocean through the sunroof. Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the diva's throne on wheels. But when the moment called for grandeur, there was always the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. This car isn't just about moving, it's about gliding through time. With its long silhouette, glowing ambient interior lighting, and seamless 4.0-liter V8 engine, it's the automotive version of a Bob Mackie gown. Sharp, tailored, unforgettable. Cher's love for this vehicle wasn't just aesthetic, it was emotional. She once joked in an interview that the S-Class felt like a limousine for one. It knows when I need silence and when I need to feel like Cleopatra. And indeed, riding in the back seat with dark sunglasses, signature long hair, and that iconic bone structure, she wasn't just a passenger, she was a queen in motion. Cadillac Escalade, American Boldness, Cher Edition. Of course, every icon needs something big, something that turns heads not with sound, but with presence. Enter the Cadillac Escalade. With its 6.2-liter V8 engine, this SUV is unapologetically bold, much like the woman who rides it. With a glossy black finish, chrome trim, and 22-inch wheels, it's not just a ride, it's a mobile stage. But more than that, the Escalade is practical royalty. Room for backup dancers? Check designer wardrobe racks in the trunk? Why not? A full glam team in the second row? Absolutely. Cher was often seen stepping out of this very car during tours, charity events, and premieres. The door opens. Flashbulbs fire, and for a split second, the entire world pauses because she's arrived. Cher's cars aren't about horsepower or speed. They're about how she moves through life. From solo Malibu drives in her BMW to red carpet arrivals in her Mercedes and tour nights in the Escalade, each vehicle played a part in the larger performance, the performance of being Cher. And yet, through every engine's growl and every leather seat's curve, the message is the same. She's in control, always has been. Powerful cars, palatial estates, couture fashion, and decades of standing ovations. But behind the sparkle, how much is Cher really worth? The answer is as staggering as her legacy, $360 million. And unlike many stars who peak and fade, Cher's fortune was crafted slowly, meticulously, like one of her beaded stage costumes, sewn sequin by sequin, era by era. And as we trace the arc of her career from orphanage windows to ocean view mansions, one thing becomes clear. The real fortune isn't just in the millions, it's in the legacy she's built, and the courage it took to build it. Behind the sequins, the stadium lights, and the Oscar statuette, what kind of heart beats within Cher? The answer isn't found on stage, but in Kenya, Flint, and the quiet corners of children's hospitals across America. Because long before it became fashionable for celebrities to support causes, Cher was already doing the work, quietly, consistently, with a purpose deeper than publicity. Philanthropy. It began with children. In 1990, Cher became the national chair and honorary ambassador for the Children's Craniofacial Association, a nonprofit dedicated to uplifting young people born with facial differences. But she didn't just lend her name. She showed up, in person, to hospitals, to summer retreats, to moments of fear that she transformed into moments of joy. She held hands, signed autographs, and told kids, "You are beautiful, just as you are." Then came the battle against AIDS. In the 1990s, when stigma still clung tightly to the disease, Cher took the stage at Cannes alongside Elizabeth Taylor, raising millions for AmFAR. She became an international ambassador for Keep a Child Alive, fighting to provide antiretroviral treatment to children infected with HIV across Africa and Asia. One of her most praised honors? The AmFAR Award of Inspiration, not for her fame, but for her fearless use of it to challenge silence, stigma, and injustice. But Cher's compassion doesn't stop at health. It stretches into the very fabric of survival. In Ukunda, Kenya, she helped build Peace Village School, providing food, education, and shelter to over 300 orphaned children, a place where futures are written not in pain, but in possibility. She also became a partner in global malaria prevention efforts, using her reach to amplify science and save lives. Closer to home in 2016, when Flint, Michigan's water crisis made headlines, Cher didn't issue a tweet. She sent 180,000 bottles of clean drinking water in collaboration with Icelandic Glacial. No press junket, no staged photos, just action. She's also been a tireless advocate for U.S. military veterans, supporting programs like Operation Helmet, which supplies safer helmet kits to troops, and the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, which aids soldiers suffering traumatic brain injuries. And when a cause wasn't getting enough attention, Cher didn't wait to be invited in. She kicked down the door. Perhaps nowhere has her advocacy been more personal than in the fight for LGBTQ+ rights. When her child, Chaz Bono, came out as a lesbian at 17, Cher was shaken. Not because she was against it, but because she was afraid of the world's cruelty. But through that fear came transformation. She became a loud, proud voice for equality, headlining events, speaking at PFLAG, and receiving the GLAAD Vanguard Award in 1998 for her work advancing acceptance. And when Chaz transitioned to male in 2009, Cher stood by him. Not quietly, but boldly. Because that's what Cher does. She feels deeply, she acts fiercely, and she never forgets where she came from, or who she's fighting for. Whether it's disaster relief, medical research, education, or civil rights, Cher's philanthropy isn't a side project. It's the heartbeat of her legacy. And in a world where fame often fades, what she gives continues to grow. For someone who has spent over 6 decades under stage lights and camera flashes, Cher has mastered the rare art of being seen, without ever being fully known. But step behind the gowns, the gold records, and the grand mansions, and you'll find a woman whose personal life is anything but scripted. Personal life. It began, as many stories do, with love. In 1969, just after giving birth to her first child, Chaz Bono, Cher married Sonny Bono, the man who had once been her partner in music, comedy, and rebellion. But what looked like harmony on the outside was, behind closed doors, complex. Their eventual split in 1975 was turbulent, legally messy, and deeply emotional. And yet through it all, she remained fiercely protective of her children, of family above all. In a twist few expected, Cher remarried only 4 days after finalizing her divorce from Sonny. This time to Southern rocker Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers Band. It didn't last. At least not in the conventional sense. They separated after just 9 days, reconciled, and then welcomed their son, Elijah Blue, in 1976. They eventually divorced in 1979, but the bond and the lessons lingered. And then came the whirlwind romances. Gene Simmons of KYSS, Eric Stoltz, the charismatic actor, Tom Cruise in one of Hollywood's most whispered-about flings, and Richie Sambora, the Bon Jovi guitarist whose fire matched her own. Each relationship, public or private, was never about completing her. It was about matching her. And that, as the world has learned, is no easy feat. But what of today? Now in her late 70s, Cher is still unmistakably herself. Still waking up near the ocean in Malibu. Still wearing eyeliner like war paint and tweeting political truth bombs at midnight. Still appearing at the Met Gala in sheer black and stardust. Still Cher. Never past tense. She's shared that she spends her mornings meditating, walking through the garden, feeding her dogs, sometimes painting, always listening to music. Not to analyze it, just to feel it. She often speaks to Chaz, and though Elijah Blue has had his struggles, she remains, as always, a lioness when it comes to her children. But perhaps her deepest companion has always been her own solitude. She has no fear of being alone. She's not searching for forever. She is forever. Her friends say she's funny, warm, introspective, that she loves perfume, that she owns an ungodly amount of black leather jackets, that she eats Pop-Tarts while wearing diamonds, that she cries at sad commercials and laughs the loudest at her own jokes. And maybe that's the real Cher, not the legend, not the icon, just the woman in Malibu, watching the sun go down, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea with the dogs at her feet, and thinking about what comes next. From El Centro's dusty streets to Malibu's golden cliffs, Cher has lived louder, loved deeper, and given more than most dare to dream. But which version of her moved you most? The goddess on stage or the woman behind the gates? If her story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more lives lived in full color.